Boom! There it is, ladies and gents. It is Monday. We're back after a 2-week vacation, and we're going to be talking about building some influence. So, if you've been trying to build something, get your name out, get your message out, this episode's for you. Here we go. Let's get this one rolling.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone, because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Buzz. All right, ladies and gents, look, ask any successful person and they're going to tell you about the power of their relationships. Too many new entrepreneurs are so focused on lead generation that they fail to nurture the relationships that they do make. But how do you do it? How do you develop relationships that where it just doesn't feel forced? Today's guest has an answer to that question. He has a framework to build a network of trusted influencers and make you an influencer yourself. So let's get this one started. Let's talk building influence, and let's welcome to the show author of Find Your Six, speaker and business owner, Mr. Patrick Kilner. All right, Patrick, welcome to the program, man.
Dude, that is the greatest intro I've had on any podcast. It's such a blast. Good to be here.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. I got a smile on your face, and we're going to talk about how do we build influence, man. First of all, tell me about your book, Find Your Six. What's that about?
So Find Your Six is really, it's my personal discovery about how to become bulletproof when adversity hits. And it led me to a realization that we really think about influence kind of backwards. And so I went on a personal discovery to understand why that is. How is it that we have missed the mark on what it takes to bulletproof our businesses through the right relationships? And so that's really the essence of the book. The six are the six people that you need to surround yourself with, the people that you need to find in your business. And I'm sure, in the businesses that you run, you know that the only thing that can't be commoditized, that can't be done by somebody else cheaper, that can't be faked, are your relationships, are the people either internal to your business or your fans who make sure that business is coming in the door for you, that the right connections are happening for you. Those are the non-tangibles, the intangibles that get us through difficulties in the marketplace, like we're going into right now in a lot of marketplaces. A lot of business owners are going, I'm not sure what this looks like in 6 months. And so you need to bulletproof your business. It's really about the right people. And to my surprise, what I found is it's not about finding 100 people, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, which I think we oftentimes get into this mindset of volume when we're trying to get likes and downloads and all of that. And instead, what I found is the people that I interviewed for this book who had amazing careers only had a handful of really impactful relationships that made the total difference in their careers and their businesses. And so that's the essence of the book, and Find Your Six.
I love that. I love that. I've already heard a number of different sayings related to that, right? A rising tide raises all ships, right? That's kind of the same type of thing. Nurturing those same relationships that are working with you, you tend to elevate each other if you have that core group of people that are there focused on trying to become better individuals or focused on trying to grow their businesses together. I remember being in real estate coaching, and a lot of it had to do with agents get into the business and they're like, how do I automate my business? How do I stop talking to customers? And as a real estate coach, it's one of those things where, like, you can automate everything else in your business, but that interaction that you have with the client oftentimes has to be done by you in a lot of these service-based industries, right? I mean, yes, I'm a marketer. I understand selling products. We can go, one to many, but it's still you building that relationship, whether it's one to many or one to one. That relationship still has to get built. But I know me personally, like there are certain things that I focus in my own life. I work out a lot, right? I drink a lot of water. I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. I love to do podcasting. Do I have to surround myself with people who have exactly the same similar lines of points of view? Or like, how do you pick your good core 6 people?
How do you find your 6? Yeah. And this is where it gets super interesting. And you can take this in a couple different ways. It really depends on who you're looking for or what you're looking to achieve. Okay, so where do I want to go? Okay. I want to work out. I want to get in shape, right? It's one of your passions. Okay. Who are the 6 people in your life who are going to be pivotal in your not only getting in shape in the short term, but also sustaining that over the long term, actually building habits? Who are the 6 people that you need to go find who are actually going to make you that same type of influence for other people down the road? Because that's how we really grow in our deep fulfillment of what we do long term, is to actually influence other people, like you are doing in coaching and getting, like you're in the, what I call in the book, the wisdom distribution business. That's what you do. You're a coach, you're a podcaster. You're taking what you have brought to the market for so many years and trading it with a lot of minds now. And that's what real influence can become. But you have to find those early people. My guess is that in your business, take your real estate business early on, there were some pivotal players who allowed you to accelerate in your business in ways that other people in your office simply didn't, right? Because you sort of intuitively knew how to go find those people, right? If I asked you, you're like, okay, early on in your career, who's the first most pivotal person for you in your career?
You know, and it's funny because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the podcast itself, right? And like very early on, I started to reach out to some people, and it was in the real estate space, and a lot of them were just getting started. But when I look at them today, some of these people that were on the show very early on are just kicking some butt. I mean, they're some of the biggest names in the industry, going from city to city, from stage to stage, doing some amazing things. And it's like the relationship started with a quick little interview, and it kind of continued through social media, through kind of boosting each other up, through pushing each other through the tough times, to now where they have these tremendous platforms. I can literally walk up, send a text message, shake hands, make quick referrals to these types of people that you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. And that's really interesting. So let me ask you this. You've done some of those podcasts. How many podcasts do you have total?
Oh my gosh. I think you're episode 1035.
Okay. 1035. And of those 1035, how many people would you say are massively influential for your podcast?
Ooh, I would say
to the degree of that you were thinking of in those early
yeah,
people.
probably like 10 of them.
Right.
Like, to be honest.
And what I found is that what we're looking for is basically at the very least a 1 in 20 talent. We're not looking just for anybody. We're looking for really, really influential people. And part of the art of finding those 6 people, those 10 people in your case, is you have to be in conversation regularly. I was looking at your lineup just for this week. Now you're coming off a 2 weeks vacation, but you've got 2 awesome people tomorrow. You're kicking off with me today. You are stacking up conversations habitually. One of the things I found about people who built real influence is they habitually had really important conversations on a daily basis. And it wasn't a lead gen conversation. We're not sitting here trying to sell each other on anything. We're having an authentic conversation about really important stuff. And so what I found is when you habitually have really deep and authentic conversations with people who could be candidates to have real influence in your life, right? So I could be a candidate. We don't know because we have to have a conversation here. But after the show, we're gonna probably talk more and go, hey, talk to me about this thing that you said. Hey, I'm going to come up with somebody almost guaranteed who I think you should talk to because of the way you ask questions, because of the way you invested into me. And so the art of that meeting and of that personal investment into people is what I discovered in the 6 people who I found in my own life, but also who I recommend people look for. there's a couple of big important traits that I think are worth mentioning here, because my guess is those 10 people that come to mind for you, they have an ownership mindset. So one of the first things is they have an ownership mindset. The buck stops with them. It's sort of burn the ship's mindset towards their business, right? They don't get out of the ship, of the battle. They stay in it. They stick with it. And so that's the first thing, is people who have ownership mindsets, I have found, as I built my network in the businesses that I've built, have been the most essential. So, and frankly, even internally, I've got people who I've hired who own their role so incredibly well that they actually push me out of other roles that I thought I had. They take my job over and they actually fire me from my role and force me to lead in a different way. And the same thing happens externally. People who take you out of your comfort zone, who will challenge you, are the type of people that will actually bulletproof your business when hard times come, when adversity comes, and when really what we like to talk about in economic terms, when disruption comes, and we're all going to face it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that kind of disruption, right? So you're talking about getting your core 6 people. We're talking about building influence, and then we're basically saying, well, you need 6 core people. And when people think about building influence, they don't think 6. They maybe think 6,000, right? But they don't think 6. And then the other side of that is, naturally everybody talks about how they want to be in certain circles. But what about the flip side of that? Do I have to get rid of some people in my life? And by what means do you like to get rid of somebody? That sounds so mean. Like, do I cut them off completely, or like, do I just not call them anymore? Like, how do I make sure that I keep that balance of being a human being and talking to, some of the people that I normally talk to, but not spending all my time with the people who are not going to help elevate me, and I'm not going to be able to elevate them.
Right. Well, one of the hardest things for me early on in my career, I started in real estate as well. And early on in my career was realizing that the great majority of people who I love, many of whom who have my same last name, are not going to be that massively influential for my business. I love them. These are people who have made me who I am today, but they're actually not going to move the needle for my business monetarily.
Yes.
And that's fine. That's perfect. In fact, that's a beautiful thing. That doesn't mean that they're not important. It does mean, however, that when I'm running a business, I'm going to hyper focus my time on people that can be influential. In my team, on the real estate side, actually, we have a saying that is, spend your professional time, effort, and money with the most influential people you can find on a daily basis, so that you can spend your personal time, effort, and money with the people who, in my case, have my kids, my wife, my dear friends, who may need me, in fact, definitely do, and who I have an obligation to, but aren't going to really move the needle for me as much, right? I'm super motivated as a result of my kids. I want to give a good example. But when it comes to influence, when it comes to pivotal, game-changing introductions within the business world, when it comes to major accounts, when it comes to sitting on my personal board of advisors for my company, whether figuratively or actually, and giving wise counsel when stuff is hitting the fan and everybody else is getting out of the business. When it comes to that, I need a different set of talent. And so I'm in a talent search every single day. And what I propose to anybody across any industry is that if you don't realize you're in the talent business, and your competitors really do understand that that's the case, right? It doesn't matter really what business you're in. Elon Musk is in the talent business, right?
Hire for profit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really what it comes down to. The scary thing when you bring people on is you don't know their talent level, right? It's the audition. It's the beautiful dress syndrome. You walk in, they look amazing. They're styling. They say all the right words when it's time to interview. And then it comes down to actually, where the rubber meets the road. Are you going to be productive or not? And that is one of those things where, I started a relationship. We hit it off. We're great. We're awesome. They motivate me to keep going. but they're not meeting their criteria or they're not meeting their job. How are you kind of evaluating some of these people? How quickly do you bring them in? How quickly do you get them out?
Look, I think you got to make some bad hires to know. Like,
Suck, man.
I
Suck
don't.
the process.
I learned by falling on my face pretty damn well. But I think eventually, look, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I imagine there's some people listening to this who have hired out of pain before. You hire because you're like, okay, that person just left. I didn't see that coming. I didn't have a bench of talent, and I went out and found my friend from college who I trust implicitly, who's great. Oh, and gosh, he needs a job, so I'm going to hire him. So you hire out of pain, not because he's actually necessarily the best person, but you justify it into yourself that this is the best person, and you sink all your eggs into that basket. Versus, you know what? I'm looking for a 1 in 20 talent. I'm going to take a step back, take a month, and I'm going to have 20 conversations to see what the marketplace of talent looks like before I decide that this person is the right person. The landscape changes entirely if you're in the habit of looking for talent. If you're not, you don't know what the landscape looks like. And so you're going to be a bad recruiter of talent.
That's so true.
I don't think we have to kick out a whole lot of people. I think we just need to constantly level up the people we're hanging out with. And so in the book, I talk about influencer candidates, because everybody's a candidate until they prove themselves to be a real influencer for you. And so you're looking for candidates. And then out of them, 1 in 20, 1 in 100 talents is what you're trying to go for. The better you get at the talent game, the more influential the people around you, the more influence you're going to build as well, because we become who we hang out with.
The people who are listening to this show are mainly at the beginning, right? They're just getting started. Maybe they had this idea and they're thinking, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to get this thing going. Let's start building this business. And some of the shortcuts that I've always loved is when you know zero people of influence, when you don't know anybody that has been in this business at all, there's always people that are out there that have been in your business that you don't know personally, but you can read their books. You can listen to their podcasts. You can watch their YouTube channels, all kinds of great stuff like that. And then there's other aspects that you can do, joining mastermind groups of people who are already in that industry. How much of that do you talk about in your book, and how relevant is it for creating that network of people that you want to get into?
Look, I'm a voracious reader. I listen constantly. I mean, my wife gives me a hard time. She's like, you're listening to 3 books at the same time. Can you just slow down for a second? Because I'm on the bike, or I'm on the rower, or I'm taking a shower. And so I'm all about gaining as much really, really like cheap wisdom. People are giving it away in books, and like, go get it. It's awesome. Because that radically enhances your ability to invest into one-on-one relationships. Like, if you're not in a learning state regularly, then you're not going to have a whole lot to offer, right? As a business owner, who should you be networking with? It's people with an ownership mindset. Who are those people? It's people who have the same level of skin in the game that you have in your business in theirs. So that might be, if you're a business owner, that's other business owners. And so, but what do those business owners need? Especially as they hit new levels. The only thing that business owners really, really need is wisdom. They can get everything else. They don't need knowledge or information. That's basically ubiquitous now online. Punch in a Google search and you can read an article. You can even fake knowledge pretty well. There's a lot of people who do that really well. Now, but what they do need is wisdom. Your job is to be, as I was saying before, a wisdom distributor. How do you do that when you're brand new to an industry? Yes, read a lot. There's all these shortcuts to it. But if you're having a conversation like the ones that I'm talking about in my book with influencer candidates regularly, the amount of great nuggets you're going to pick up from really wise people is going to be pretty high. What is the greatest distribution method of wisdom that I know of? I think, and this gets down to sort of definition of wisdom. the greatest distribution method doesn't necessarily have to be you. You don't have to have all the right answers, but you do have to have the right connections. So imagine what this would look like if you're getting into a business in whatever industry it is. Let's say I'm in tech sales and you're having an influencer candidate meeting every single day. And you make it your objective to set a meeting a day, to have one of those meetings every single day, and then to connect two great people in your network. Why? Because one person has wisdom that another person may need. Guess who the first person they talk about is when they meet? It's you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's free marketing. It's free promotion for you and who you are. Now, let's say one of those people knew you before you got in the business. They had you sort of pigeonholed in a box. All of a sudden, you connect them to somebody of real influence. Now you've reframed who you are to them as a professional.
Yes.
And it's a really, really powerful thing. So that's some of the advice I would give is you just got to be in the talent business, which means you're having these conversations. Now put those conversations to work for you.
Well, let's talk about setting those conversations, because part of the, when you talk about setting your appointment every day, your objective, I mean, you sound like a realtor, by the way, right? You got to set an appointment every day, go on a listing appointment every single day. How many people did you talk to, right? All that comes down to nurturing campaigns, whether it's email, whether it's text messages, whether you're picking up the phone. And that's part of that lead gen stuff, right? So how does it become some of that core person? Do I just drop that stuff, or is there an approach you're taking to setting the appointments, to getting those initial conversations going?
Yeah, one of the things that I found as I began having these conversations early in my career, because I did all sort of the classic lead gen, like knocking doors and pounding the phones, scripts, dialogues, all that stuff, right? And by the way, there's nothing wrong with understanding the art of lead generation, in particular when it comes to marketing. But what I'm talking about is business development. Business development, like really, really big sales happen, really, really, really impactful things for businesses happen on a person-to-person basis. So what I attack in the book is sort of this: hey, don't get so into this lead gen mindset that you forget the incredible power of a few really important relationships. So what we do is we just churn past relationships thinking it's just a numbers game. One of the things that I found is when you're able to have artfully superb conversations with influential people, they turn around and they introduce you to the rest of their network. So you now get to get out of the lead gen business, and you get to, because you're a connector, what you're doing for people is, by you connecting them, you actually demonstrate to them the type of business development you would like for them to help you with as well. So you can walk into a city where you know nobody. This is what I train people on. Find a handful of influential people who will have a conversation with you. Again, these are candidates. You don't know if they're going to be impactful for your business. But if you have that meeting well, and you really invest into the relationship, you're not just showing up and pitching, right? People see right through that. But they see authenticity there. What will happen, and if you prompt it correctly, and I give some tips for this in the book, they will turn around and introduce you to their network. And so from one conversation, you can have two, you can have four, it just sort of spirals. And that's really the power of these types of conversations, is you never have to feel like you're chasing just numbers.
I feel like we're dating, right? When you're having these conversations, it's like dating essentially, right? Think about the beginning of our show. It literally starts off with the fire intro, and I'm praising all the accomplishments that you've done, right? Things that you've accomplished in your career, the book that you've written, what your main focus is. And I feel like when you're first beginning the nurturing part of these relationships, it's a lot like that. It's like, dude, you're an amazing individual. You have this massive skill. I found this article and I think it'd be perfect for you, right? And I think a lot of that is that part at the very beginning, that dating, like, how can I get you to want to talk to me again? Here's something else cool. Here's a flower. Here's, chocolates. Here's, maybe not
Let me
doing
show
it
you
that
I
way.
care.
right? But let me show you that I care. And then some of those relationships, you're going to see that they develop. All of a sudden, you're going back and forth. And it's not just, you're hitting them up on a Monday, like, hey, you said you were going to do this. Are you doing it? Hey, happy birthday. How's your wife and kids? But it starts off in that dating mode. I think too often we want to build these massive networks of people, and we want to skip from, let me introduce myself and let's go straight to the sack, right? Versus doing that actual part, the work of building that relationship.
Yeah, there's a courtship for sure.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, how long am I supposed to be dating someone before I ask them to marry me?
Yeah, sometimes they go really fast, right? Sometimes it's a slow burn. It doesn't, again, because this is how talent works. I've had conversations with people and it takes them 4 years before they come into my organization. I've also had conversations, we sit down and we have a conversation, that person's like, I am ready. I am all in. They came from a really, really great source who knows my business, who knows exactly what I'm looking for. And it's a slam dunk. The next week we're in business together. So it can happen really quickly or really slow. The beauty of this is you don't have to push relationships faster than they need to go. You just have to be in the relationship game. But you're absolutely right. It is there's a courtship, there's a dating reality to this. And the more that people understand that you are showing up for them, the more authentic you come across. And that's really hard. I remember getting into business. Heck, any business I've started, at the beginning, you feel like if I could just flyer 1 million people and they could all just hear my message. And by the way, they paid attention. They were undistracted. They gave me the time of day. They would love whatever it is I'm selling. They would love whatever I have for them. And the reality is people were way too distracted. So unless you're getting in front of them with things that are unique and valuable to them, and that's why I talk about wisdom so much, the only thing that's not a non-commodity to people in almost anything is real curated advice and wisdom. If you're in a service industry, if you're a business owner networking with other business owners, bring it's sort of the givers get paradigm. Now, package that up into something that a system that you can actually use for business. That's what the book is really all about.
Pat, before we head out, because we're getting close to time, I want to make sure I give you any final thoughts, man. And also, how can I get a copy of that book if I'm interested in getting it?
Well, I'll send you a copy, man. But everything you need is on Find Your Six, all spelled out, FindYourSix.com. Download a free copy of the first chapter. So kick the tires on it, see if you like it. If you don't buy it. If you do, buy 10. Give them to your friends. Give them to the people that you're networking with. And actually on there recently, I've put a challenge. So it's a guided challenge. It's a free download. Folks can actually begin building their pipeline of talent to go find their six tomorrow through this download. And I'm really passionate about this. So it's a total giveaway of a lot of the tips and ideas in my book. So that's the best place. And you can follow me, check out, all sorts of stuff about how I'm thinking, other podcasts and some ideas.
Ladies and gents, that's what it comes down to. Find your six. Stop lead generating and start. What do you have on the back of your book?
Building influence.
Start building influence. And if you want to get a copy, make sure you guys go to the website. Scrolling across the bottom, but if you're listening to audio only, it's www.findyoursix, YOURSIX, findyoursix.com, and start developing those relationships, building that influence, and helping each other take that business to the next level. All of a sudden, you're going to look back. I'm telling you, it starts with your own habits and routines. You surround yourself with people who keep you with meeting those minimum standards on a regular basis. And before you know it, you're in a level you never thought was possible. Man, Patrick, thank you very much for coming on the show today. Any last thoughts before we head out?
No, just keep killing it, man. By the way, love what you're doing here. Thank you for taking all of this wisdom and putting it out there. I really have enjoyed it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Ladies and gents, hope you guys like the background. We're switching it up. I'm literally in the classroom, no students today, but we're going to start doing the show starting in October, I want to say 11th, full-time in the classroom. So all the entrepreneurs who come on the show, not only do they get to talk to our audience, but they're going to have a live studio audience of high school students who are itching to start building their businesses. So you can share your wisdom with them as well. So Pat, thank you very much for coming on the show. Ladies and gents, we'll catch you guys again on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started.